The navel is often seen merely as a physical mark, a simple scar on the body that remains from birth, a reminder of the connection to our mother. Yet, in truth, it is far more than a mark of origin. It is the center of life itself, the very point from which energy flows and circulates through the entire being. In many ancient traditions, the navel is recognized as the axis of creation, the place where body, mind, and spirit converge. It is here that the subtle energies of life gather and radiate, and it is here that transformation can begin. To understand the navel is to understand the delicate interplay of forces within us, the invisible currents that shape our experiences and guide our destiny. Energy, like water, flows naturally through the pathways of the body. Yet it often pools or stagnates when the mind is clouded or the spirit is burdened. The navel, positioned at the center of the abdomen, acts as a reservoir, a quiet basin where these energies are collected, refined, and redistributed. It is not a point to be overlooked, for it is the very heart of the body's energetic system. When the navel is honored, when attention is placed upon it with awareness and intention, it becomes a conduit through which life force, vitality, and consciousness can move unhindered. It is said that the navel is the meeting place of heaven and earth within the body, a point where celestial energy descends and earthly energy rises, intertwining in harmony. To place focus on the navel is to recognize the intimate connection between the inner and the outer, the seen and the unseen. It is the point where physicality meets subtlety, where matter meets spirit, and where one can touch the pulse of life itself. Many practices of energy cultivation, meditation, and spiritual awakening begin with the navel because it is here that the body's latent powers are most accessible. By bringing conscious awareness to this center, the practitioner begins to dissolve the illusions of separation, to feel the seamless flow of energy that connects all things. Each breath, each movement, each intention gathers at the navel and is then transformed into life force energy, nourishing the mind, clarifying the heart, and awakening the spirit. The navel is also deeply connected to the digestive system, the place where sustenance is transformed into energy. Just as the body metabolizes food to fuel the physical form, the navel metabolizes experience, emotion, and thought to fuel the subtle body. It is a center of alchemy, a place where the ordinary becomes extraordinary. Emotions that feel heavy, thoughts that feel stuck, patterns that feel repetitive, all of these are processed and transmuted when the navel is engaged consciously. By placing attention here, by feeling the gentle expansion and contraction with each breath, one begins to sense the silent rhythm of life, the pulse that underlies all experience. The navel is not only a point of energy, but also a point of remembrance. It reminds us of our first connection, the bond with the source, the unity of being. From the navel, life emerges, and in it, the memory of connection persists. In moments of stillness, when the mind is quiet and the body is relaxed, one can feel this connection radiating from the navel outward, touching every cell, every thought, every corner of existence. It is a place of grounding yet also of ascent, a paradox that holds the key to understanding our own nature. Through this center, one learns the rhythm of giving and receiving, of holding and releasing, of being both human and divine. Many traditions speak of the navel as the seat of creativity, of vitality, and of willpower. It is here that desire and intention originate, where the inner flame of life burns most brightly. To cultivate the navel is to cultivate clarity of purpose, to ignite the inner spark that drives action and transformation. When this center is balanced, energy flows freely, and the individual experiences a sense of alignment, a quiet confidence that comes not from external validation, but from the intimate knowledge of one's own source. The navel teaches patience, for its power is not abrupt or forceful. It is gentle, steady, and enduring. It whispers to those who listen, guiding them through challenges, offering insight where confusion reigns, and providing a calm foundation in times of turbulence. In the subtle body, the navel is often associated with the solar plexus, the area where personal power, emotional resilience, and self-expression converge. By engaging with this center, one awakens not only physical vitality, but also emotional intelligence and spiritual insight. The navel holds the memory of all beginnings, the seed from which patterns grow, and the potential for transformation. It is here that one can sense the interconnectedness of mind, body, and spirit, where each thought and feeling resonates outward and inward simultaneously. The navel, when treated as sacred, becomes a sanctuary, a place where one can return at any moment to find balance, renewal, and the quiet strength that underlies all life. To meditate on the navel, to place intention here, is to acknowledge one's own centrality in life. It is to honor the body as a vessel, the mind as a garden, and the spirit as a river flowing through both. The navel is a reminder that power does not always roar. Sometimes it waits silently, patiently, beneath the surface, ready to emerge when called upon. It is a source of resilience, a point of focus, and a channel for transformation. To touch the navel with awareness is to touch the essence of being, to feel the vibration of life, to recognize that within this small, often overlooked point lies the potential for profound change, for healing, and for awakening. A curse is often misunderstood as a simple misfortune, a spoken word meant to harm, or a force imposed from the outside. Yet, when observed with clarity and awareness, a curse is not an external entity but an energetic pattern, a vibration that has been woven into the fabric of the mind, the body, and the life of the person who receives it. It is subtle, invisible to the eye, yet profoundly tangible in its effects. Like a river redirected, a curse shifts the flow of energy, creating blockages, stagnation, and repetitive cycles that seem impossible to escape. It is not simply punishment or bad luck, it is an interruption of the natural harmony of energy, a distortion in the rhythm that governs life. To understand curses as energetic patterns is to begin the process of freeing oneself from them, for once their nature is seen, they lose their grip and dissolve naturally. Energy, in its essence, follows intention. Every thought, emotion, and action produces a resonance that vibrates outward, and in return, life responds to these vibrations. A curse, whether whispered in anger or imagined in fear, establishes a vibration within the subtle layers of the body and mind. It lodges in the energy field like a pebble in a stream, altering the flow, creating turbulence, and shaping the experiences that follow. Over time, these energetic patterns become reinforced by the thoughts, fears, and emotions of the person affected, forming a kind of resonance loop. It is not magic in the sense of superstition. It is energy obeying natural law, following the principles of cause and effect within the subtle realms of existence. When a curse is placed upon someone, it often coincides with internal vulnerabilities, moments when the energy is already fragmented, when fear, doubt, or unresolved trauma has weakened the natural protective flow of life force. In these moments, the energetic pattern of the curse finds fertile ground. It is not the curse alone that produces suffering, it is the interplay between the external vibration and the internal state. Therefore, the liberation from a curse does not come solely from an external ritual or tool, though such methods can aid the process. True liberation comes from understanding the pattern, recognizing its entry points, and restoring the natural flow of energy within. Curses operate like subtle echoes, repeating themselves through thought, emotion, and circumstance. They may appear as obstacles, failures, sudden conflicts, or emotional heaviness. Often, one may not even realize that these repetitions are caused by a pattern rather than by external coincidence. Yet, with careful observation, one can see the rhythm, the repeated cycle, and the energetic signature of the disturbance. Each obstacle is a reflection of the pattern embedded in the energy body, and each reaction to it strengthens or weakens that pattern. The moment awareness touches the curse, the pattern begins to unravel, for energy responds to consciousness. The observer within us is always more powerful than the pattern observed. Understanding curses as energetic patterns also shifts the relationship from fear to responsibility. When a curse is seen as an external, uncontrollable force, one becomes small, reactive, and disempowered. But when it is understood as a pattern, a form of energy that can be observed, traced, and altered, the individual regains agency. The body, mind, and spirit can be aligned to release the vibration, to transmute it into a neutral or positive flow. Awareness, intention, and practice become the tools for transformation. Techniques such as breathwork, meditation, visualization, and the conscious placement of energy upon the body, particularly upon centers like the navel, amplify this process, guiding energy back to its natural rhythm and dissolving the distortion of the curse. Curses are not inherently negative, they are simply patterns of energy responding to misalignment, disharmony, or the momentum of past actions. In this understanding, every curse carries within it the possibility of insight, growth, and liberation. By examining the energetic structure, By feeling where the vibration has lodged in the body or mind, the practitioner can learn not only how to release it, but also why it manifested in the first place. Often, the pattern reveals hidden fears, unresolved trauma, or unconscious beliefs that have allowed the curse to take hold. When these root causes are addressed, the energetic pattern cannot survive and the curse ceases to influence the life it once affected. The process of breaking a curse, therefore, is a process of alignment, of restoring coherence to the energy field. It is the recognition that energy flows best when unobstructed, when the mind is clear, when intention is focused, and when the body is attuned to the subtle currents that move within. Each act of attention, each breath directed with consciousness, each moment of presence, gradually reshapes the field, dissolving the repetitive vibrations of the curse. The pattern weakens, unravels, and eventually disappears, leaving space for the natural harmony of life to return. Curses as energetic patterns remind us that the world we experience is not separate from the energy we carry. They teach the importance of observation, of cultivating awareness, and of nurturing a subtle sensitivity to the currents within. They reveal the invisible threads that connect thought, emotion, and circumstance, and they offer a path not of resistance but of transformation. By perceiving a curse in this way, one moves beyond fear, beyond blame, and beyond the illusion of helplessness, stepping instead into a deeper understanding of energy, intention, and the power inherent within every human being. Intentional placement is not merely a physical act, it is the conscious alignment of energy, awareness, and purpose. When something is placed with intention, it becomes more than an object or a symbol. It becomes a conduit, a vessel through which transformation flows. Every action we take, when infused with awareness, carries the potential to shift subtle energies, to awaken dormant forces, and to alter the trajectory of life. The principle of intentional placement teaches that energy responds not only to thought, but to action, and that when these two are combined, the results can be profound, immediate, and far-reaching. To place something on the body, such as the navel, is to create a focal point where energy, consciousness, and intention converge, forming a powerful nexus for change. The navel, as the center of the body's energy system, becomes a natural site for intentional placement. It is here that the vibrations of the body, mind, and spirit intersect, and it is here that an object or practice can catalyze transformation. Placement with intention is never casual. It requires awareness, clarity, and an understanding of the energetic currents involved. When a simple act, whether a touch, a stone, a symbol, or a gesture, is done with conscious intent, it resonates through the subtle layers of the body, awakening dormant pathways and realigning energy that may have been stagnant or blocked. This is not magic in the conventional sense, but the natural response of energy to focus and purpose. The universe at its core responds to clarity of intent, and intentional placement is a way of channeling this responsiveness into the body, into the mind, and into life itself. Intentional placement works because it bridges the inner and the outer. When something is placed on the navel or another central point with awareness, it creates a point of contact between the subtle energy of the body and the conscious will of the practitioner. This point becomes a bridge, a connection where energy can move freely, where blockages can dissolve, and where patterns of imbalance can be restructured. The act is both symbolic and practical. It symbolizes a commitment to transformation and physically stimulates the energy field in ways that words or thoughts alone cannot. The subtle currents within the body respond to touch, to weight, to placement, and when combined with the force of intention, these currents can be directed toward healing, protection, or liberation. The power of intentional placement is amplified when it is accompanied by focused awareness. Awareness is the lens through which energy becomes perceptible, the faculty that allows subtle forces to be guided and directed. Without awareness, placement is mechanical, inert, and ineffective. With awareness, however, even the smallest gesture carries profound potential. The simple act of placing a symbolic object on the navel, while visualizing the dissolution of energetic blockages, for instance, can initiate a cascade of transformation that touches the mind, the heart, and the body simultaneously. The energy responds not because of the object itself, but because the conscious intention behind it activates a resonance within the subtle body. Intentional placement also teaches the principle of responsibility. Energy is neither good nor bad. It is a force that responds to direction and focus. By learning to place something with intention, The practitioner assumes responsibility for their own energy, for the currents that move through their life, and for the influence they exert upon their own consciousness. It is a practice that cultivates mindfulness, self-awareness, and discernment. Each placement becomes an opportunity to engage with the subtle patterns of the self, to observe the flow of energy, and to direct it with precision toward desired outcomes. The act becomes both meditative and transformative, a sacred dialogue between inner knowing and outer action. Moreover, intentional placement is not limited to physical objects. It encompasses gestures, touch, breath, and even visualization. The mind and the body are interconnected, and every deliberate act of placement, whether a hand resting on the navel, a symbolic stone placed with awareness, or the visualization of energy flowing into the center, creates a bridge between thought and form. The energy body perceives these acts as guidance, and the subtle patterns within begin to reorganize in response. Over time, repeated intentional placements reinforce positive vibrations, strengthen the energy field, and dissolve distortions, including those that may have been caused by negative influences or curses. The principle of intentional placement also emphasizes precision. Energy responds to clarity of focus, to exactitude of action, and to consistency of intention. Placing something carelessly or without awareness produces minimal effect, but placing it deliberately with a clear vision of its purpose produces a resonance that amplifies throughout the energy system. It is not the object itself that holds power, but the alignment of intention, awareness, and placement that transforms the act into a catalyst. In this way, intentional placement becomes a form of energy alchemy, where ordinary acts are transformed into tools for liberation, healing, and awakening. Intentional placement reveals the profound interconnectedness of the body, mind, and spirit. It shows that transformation is not always external, that the greatest shifts occur within subtle patterns, and that the simple act of placing something with awareness can awaken latent potential. By focusing on points of energetic convergence, such as the navel, one can redirect, dissolve, and harmonize energy with remarkable subtlety. The act of placement becomes a meditation, a practice of mindfulness, and a statement of conscious power, demonstrating that life responds not merely to passive existence, but to deliberate, thoughtful, and aware engagement with the currents of energy that flow invisibly through all things. Awareness is the key that unlocks the hidden doors of transformation. It is the lens through which energy, thought, and intention become visible, tangible, and responsive. Without awareness, life flows like a river unnoticed, and the subtle currents of the body, mind, and spirit remain obscured, carrying patterns that are unexamined and unaltered. But with awareness, even the smallest action becomes significant. Every thought resonates with purpose, and energy responds instantly to the consciousness that guides it. Transformation, in this sense, is not a distant goal, a reward for patience, or a gradual accumulation of effort. It is immediate, available in each breath, each moment, each pulse of life, the instant the mind observes and the heart receives. Transformation through awareness begins with recognition. To become aware is to see clearly, to perceive without distortion, and to acknowledge what is present in the moment. When one is fully aware, one perceives the currents of energy that flow through the body, the hidden blockages that impede vitality, and the subtle distortions that create imbalance in life. This recognition is the first step, for energy cannot change until it is seen. Like sunlight touching water, awareness illuminates the patterns that were previously hidden, revealing their structure, origin, and effect. Once illuminated, these patterns no longer hold power over the individual, for light dissolves shadow, clarity dissolves confusion, and presence dissolves inertia. Awareness is not merely intellectual understanding, it is a living, sensing, perceiving force. It engages with the body, the mind, and the spirit simultaneously, touching the energetic, emotional, and mental layers with equal presence. In this state, transformation occurs not gradually, but instantly. A single moment of true awareness can shift the vibration of the body, reorient the flow of energy, and open pathways that were previously blocked. A breath taken with conscious attention can release tension held for years. A thought observed without judgment can dissolve fear. A sensation noticed fully can awaken dormant energy. This is the alchemy of awareness, the recognition that consciousness itself is the agent of change. When awareness is directed toward a point of focus, such as the navel or another center of energy, the effect is magnified. The navel, as the center of life force and creation, responds directly to observation. Attention placed here acts like a tuning fork, vibrating with the frequencies of clarity, intention, and presence. The subtle energy field, which may have been distorted by negative patterns, blockages, or curses, reorganizes immediately in response to conscious observation. Transformation is not an external imposition, but an internal recognition. The energy is always there, always flowing, and awareness simply allows it to move freely. Awareness also transforms perception. Often, what is experienced as limitation, suffering, or stagnation is not a fixed reality, but a pattern of energy maintained by unconscious attention. When awareness shines upon these patterns, the illusion of permanence dissolves. The mind recognizes that the obstacles were created by repeated attention, by fixation, by identification with what is transient. This recognition itself releases the grip of the pattern. Instant transformation occurs not because the external world changes, but because the internal field, the subtle energy, the body, the mind, realigns in the presence of conscious perception. Awareness is both the observer and the agent of change, the light and the key that unlocks the door to freedom. The process of instant transformation through awareness requires no tools, no rituals, and no permission from the outside. It is inherent in the very nature of consciousness. Yet, awareness can be enhanced through practices that engage the senses, focus attention, and cultivate presence. Simple acts such as placing a hand on the navel, breathing consciously into the center of the body, or visualizing energy flowing freely can accelerate the shift. But the essence of transformation remains the same the moment awareness touches the pattern is altered, reorganized, and released. Energy responds to presence, the mind responds to clarity, and the body responds to attention. Awareness also teaches humility and patience, for it reveals the layers of complexity that underlie even the simplest patterns. Transformation is instant not because it bypasses natural law, but because consciousness has the power to reorganize energy at its source. This instant change may not always be dramatic in the physical realm. Often, it begins subtly as a shift in feeling, perception, or alignment. Yet, the subtle shift initiates a cascade of effects that unfold naturally over time, guided by the renewed vibration of awareness. By observing and allowing, by engaging with presence rather than resistance, transformation manifests in ways both immediate and enduring. Moreover, instant transformation through awareness highlights the interconnectedness of all layers of being. A single moment of mindful observation can ripple through body, mind, and spirit, simultaneously dissolving blockages, correcting imbalances, and awakening latent potential. Awareness allows one to touch the source of energy, to perceive the origin of patterns, and to redirect flow in harmony with the natural order. In this state, limitations are no longer imposed from outside, obstacles lose their rigidity, fears lose their hold, and energy aligns effortlessly with purpose. Awareness transforms not by force, but by recognition, not by struggle, but by presence, and in its purity, it dissolves the veils that separate the self from the infinite currents of life. True power does not come from outside, it arises from within. Inner alignment is the state in which mind, body, and spirit move in harmony, resonating with the natural flow of life. External tools, objects, or circumstances may assist or amplify, but they cannot replace the foundation of alignment within. To rely solely on what is external is to build a structure on sand, fragile, dependent, and fleeting. When the self is aligned internally, the external world becomes an extension, a mirror reflecting the inner coherence rather than the source of power. Alignment is not a state to be sought externally, it is cultivated from within through awareness, intention, and understanding of one's own energetic and emotional patterns. Inner alignment begins with self-observation. It requires looking honestly at one's thoughts, emotions, and sensations, noticing where resistance, fear, or distraction exist. Each thought, each emotion carries energy, and when the mind and heart are fragmented, this energy scatters, creating chaos and inviting interference from external forces. A person who is unaligned internally becomes vulnerable, not because of the world outside, but because their own energy field lacks coherence. In contrast, a person who has cultivated alignment carries a subtle yet palpable stability, a resonance that harmonizes with life rather than being tossed about by its fluctuations. This alignment becomes the source of protection, strength, and clarity. Relying on external objects, symbols, or practices without cultivating inner alignment is like placing a raft on water without knowing how to navigate currents. While external tools can assist, they cannot guide the energy or sustain transformation on their own. Their effectiveness is directly proportional to the internal coherence of the practitioner. A talisman, a stone, or a ritual can amplify intention, but if the mind is scattered or the heart is conflicted, the external object is inert, powerless to create real change. True change emerges when the internal state is clear, focused, and aligned. The external becomes a reflection, an amplifier, a supporting partner rather than the source itself. Inner alignment is closely tied to awareness of energy. When the energy body is coherent, subtle currents flow freely, blockages dissolve naturally, and one resonates with the underlying harmony of life. This coherence allows the individual to engage with external tools consciously, directing their power with clarity rather than being subject to it blindly. The navel, as a central point of energy, often becomes a focal point for cultivating this alignment, acting as a bridge between internal coherence and external reinforcement. Placement of an object on the navel, when accompanied by inner focus and intention, resonates not because of the object alone, but because the aligned energy amplifies its effect. Inner alignment transforms the external into a channel for expression, not a source of dependence. Alignment also cultivates discernment. When the mind and heart are balanced, one can perceive which external influences are supportive and which are distractions. Many seek power, protection, or transformation in external forms, rituals, objects, or even other people, without understanding that the true work lies within. Inner alignment provides the clarity to distinguish what is necessary, what is amplifying, and what is superfluous. It allows one to engage with the external world skillfully, using tools as extensions of internal coherence rather than crutches to compensate for imbalance. This discernment is itself a form of empowerment, for it prevents reliance on forces that are unreliable, impermanent, or incomplete. The principle of inner alignment emphasizes self-mastery. To be aligned is to observe without judgment, to act without compulsion, and to move in harmony with life rather than against it. When alignment is cultivated, energy becomes fluid, resilient, and responsive. External challenges no longer impose suffering, for they are met with clarity, calm, and centeredness. The mind does not flinch at the unexpected, the heart does not waver under pressure, and the subtle energy body maintains coherence, absorbing and redirecting influences rather than being scattered by them. Inner alignment is not passive, it is an active, living resonance that transforms perception, enhances sensitivity, and empowers action. Moreover, inner alignment creates an energetic signature that affects the external world naturally. The coherence of the individual radiates subtly, influencing interactions, circumstances, and even the flow of events. Those who are aligned internally find that external conditions often adjust in response, not because the external controls them, but because their internal resonance harmonizes with the natural currents of life. This is the essence of true empowerment. One does not rely on external objects, rituals, or people to create effect. One becomes a living, resonant center that naturally attracts, amplifies, and directs the currents of energy in harmony with intention. Alignment also allows one to transform challenges into opportunities. When internal coherence is established, obstacles no longer dominate consciousness or scatter energy. Instead, they are recognized as patterns, disturbances in the flow, and with awareness they can be dissolved, transmuted, or integrated. External influences may provoke, distract, or test, but a person who is aligned internally maintains the center of gravity within, and this inner stability becomes the source from which power, insight, and resilience naturally arise. In this way, inner alignment is both shield and conduit, grounding the self while enabling energy to move freely, transforming external circumstances without depending on them for effect. Life often presents itself as a series of repeated patterns, cycles that seem to replay regardless of effort, desire, or intention. These cycles are not mere coincidences, they are energetic patterns embedded deeply within the subtle layers of the mind, body, and spirit. A curse, a habit, an emotional reaction, these are not isolated events, but manifestations of cycles that have taken root, sometimes over lifetimes, sometimes over years of experience. To focus only on the effects of these cycles, to remove a symptom, to undo a single obstacle, is to treat the surface without touching the root. True transformation occurs when the cycle itself is recognized, understood, and broken at its source, releasing energy that has been trapped and allowing life to flow freely once more. Breaking cycles requires awareness of patterns. Every repeated thought, Every habitual emotion, every recurring circumstance carries a signature of energy. By observing without judgment, by noticing the rhythm of recurrence, one begins to see the invisible threads that connect events, feelings, and behaviors. These threads are the blueprint of the cycle, and understanding them is essential to dissolving their power. A curse, for example, may manifest repeatedly in misfortune, conflict, or emotional heaviness, but the repetition is guided by an underlying energetic pattern. Awareness illuminates this pattern, revealing not just the surface disturbances, but the root causes that allow the cycle to persist. Cycles often persist because energy flows unconsciously. Unexamined patterns generate habitual responses. Fear is met with fear, anger with anger, expectation with expectation. These responses reinforce the cycle, creating momentum that carries through time and circumstance. To break the cycle, the energy must be redirected, reorganized, or transmuted. This is where practices that engage the body and mind, such as focused attention on energy centers like the navel, intentional placement of objects or symbols, or meditation, can become powerful catalysts. The energy does not resist awareness, it responds naturally when intention is applied with clarity and consistency, allowing the repetitive vibration to dissolve. Breaking cycles is not merely about avoiding repetition, it is about restructuring the energetic blueprint itself. Each cycle is maintained by both conscious and unconscious engagement. When a person reacts habitually, the energy pattern is reinforced. When one observes, redirects, and intervenes with awareness, the cycle begins to weaken. The disruption of repetition, even in a small act of mindful presence, produces ripple effects that alter the course of events. This is the essence of breaking cycles rather than merely treating effects. It is the transformation of the underlying energy that governs the appearance of circumstances in life. The principle of breaking cycles emphasizes depth over immediacy. External events, the effects we see and feel, are simply the surface expressions of deeper energetic structures. By attending only to effects, one may achieve temporary relief or superficial success, but the pattern remains, ready to manifest again under similar conditions. True liberation requires reaching beneath the surface, engaging with the energy that sustains the repetition and consciously reshaping it. This is a process that requires patience, attention, and a willingness to confront discomfort, for cycles often persist precisely because they are energetically familiar even when they cause suffering. Breaking cycles also involves the recognition of interconnection. A single cycle may manifest across multiple layers of experience, physical habits, emotional reactions, mental narratives, and even relational dynamics. Each layer reflects and reinforces the others, creating a coherent loop that seems impossible to escape. When awareness penetrates the pattern at one point, the entire loop begins to shift. An internal adjustment, a conscious act of alignment, or a shift in energy at a central point, such as the navel, can reverberate outward, dissolving the cycle across layers. Energy is not confined to isolated effects, it moves holistically, and so must the intervention to break its repetition. Breaking cycles is a form of liberation. It restores choice where previously only repetition existed. Energy that was trapped in habitual patterns becomes available for creative expression, for healing, and for conscious engagement with life. By addressing the cycle rather than only its effects, the individual moves from reaction to agency, from unconscious repetition to intentional action. Each cycle broken strengthens the subtle field, enhancing resilience, clarity, and alignment with the natural flow of life. The process teaches the subtle wisdom of energy, that the root of experience is not outside but within, and that the mastery of life is found in reshaping patterns at their source rather than attempting to manipulate their consequences. Cycles are also opportunities for understanding and growth. They reveal where energy has been constrained, where attention has been scattered, and where patterns of fear, attachment, or imbalance have persisted. By engaging with cycles consciously, one not only releases their repetitive force, but also gains insight into the structure of the self, the mechanisms of thought and emotion, and the subtle laws of energy that govern experience. Each cycle, once broken, leaves behind a field of potential, a space where life can move unimpeded, creativity can flourish, and consciousness can expand. The act of breaking cycles is both subtle and profound. It does not rely on confrontation or struggle, but on awareness, intention, and alignment. Energy responds to presence, clarity, and directed consciousness. When a cycle is observed, understood and gently redirected, the repetition loses coherence, the pattern dissolves, and the energy returns to a natural, harmonious flow. Effects change naturally when the underlying structure is altered, and the individual experiences freedom not as a temporary relief, but as a fundamental shift in the way energy moves through life.